Hi, I'm Fida Master Levy Cherbulenko, and in this series I explore the typical mistakes of people rated anywhere between 8,000 and 2,000. This is a first reaction, no engine analysis, of a chess.com game played between 1299 versus 1267. Let's start. Alright, so e4, c5, the Sicilian defense. Bishop to c4, activating the bishop, hitting f7. The problem with this though is that black hasn't played e5 yet, right? So we can play e6 and then black the bishop on c4. But let's see, e6, d4. Yeah, that's a bit unusual. That's not the best idea. Typically, you only play d4 if you have a knight on f3. Or a pawn on c3. Why? So that if black takes on d4, you can either take back with a knight or with a pawn, but never with a queen. We do not want to take with a queen on d4. We don't play d4 in these kind of situations. Why? Because after cd, let's see, black took, yes, queen d4 and knight to c6, black develops his knight with tempo, and now we have to waste one tempo and move the queen back rather than developing our minor pieces and castling. So we lose a whole tempo, and chess is a tragedy of one tempo, right? So in the opening, we should prioritize occupying the center, developing the minor pieces, especially developing quickly the king side minor pieces. Why? So that we can quickly castle, most of the time king side. Then we can worry about the queen side pieces, then we can worry about the queen and the rooks. So the queen is the last piece that we develop, the last piece, because otherwise we're just gonna lose tempo, right? So that's why already this is bad for white. It's already bad. So what white could have done instead? Usually when you play bishop c4, it does not really go well together with d4. If you want to play d4, you don't play bishop c4, you play knight f3, then you go for d4. If you play bishop c4, it goes much better with d3, right? Either now or maybe first knight c3 to maybe prevent d5, let's say, right? And then play d3, right? And then this is the closed Sicilian, d3, and then in the closed Sicilian we don't play in the center, but rather we play on the king side with f4, knight f3, eventually f5, and attack on the king side. So bishop c4 and d4 don't really go well together, especially not if you have a queen on d4. That's the worst. So it's already bad for white. Let's see, queen d1, wasting one tempo, a6. I mean, that's okay. Threatening like b5 stuff, right? Attacking the bishop, getting the bishop on b7, but why not just play knight f6? Because I mean, what's faster? What's faster development? a6 is the top priority, or knight f6 is top priority to develop minor pieces, to castle quickly, to put pressure on e4, right? This is more central play. When you play a6, you don't really threaten much like in the center. When you play knight f6, that's more dynamic, more concrete play, actual threat in the center. So I think knight f6 is a much better move, because now if white plays, let's say, knight to c3, defending the pawn, now black could play bishop b4, again reinforcing the threat of knight takes e4. Again we're threatening knight e4. And if white plays a move like f3, that's very weakening. f3 simultaneously weakens two diagonals, a7 g1 and h4 e1. f3 is never a good idea in this kind of positions, never a good idea. So f3 is very weakening, and now black would maybe even play like d5, I suppose. Yes, because if ed, white cannot take on d5, because if bishop d5, just knight takes d5, and queen takes d5, queen takes d5, white cannot play knight takes d5 because the knight is pinned, right? So d5 is very good. d5, ed, let's say they move bishops, and then just d4, and with huge attack, So yeah, so d5 would be very good. And if not f3, I mean, if queen d3 was still we can play like d5 and then d4 with huge attack. There's also knight e5 ideas, right? Double attack, attacking the queen, attacking the bishop, right? If bishop d3, then that's a passive move. We went to c4, now we go back to d3. That's already not ideal. Again, wasting another tempo. We wasted a tempo on queen d4, queen d1. Now we waste a second tempo on bishop c4, bishop d3. So it's just bad. And again, black would just play still d5 with initiative. We can also play knight e5 and win the bishop. We can also at any moment take the knight and damage white's pawn structure, like queen a5. So much stuff for black. So this already is definitely initiative for black. Do you see? Central play. Always first think about central attack. Always look at attacking central pawns, not a6. a6 is not top priority. So a6 we can say is an inaccuracy by black. Let's see, a4, preventing b5, but is it really that necessary? I mean, it's okay, but I mean, maybe white could have just developed, right? Just developed. Maybe like, I don't know, knight f3, like castling, right? Or knight c3. Maybe b5 is not that big of a deal. If we play b5, I don't know, maybe put the bishop on d3, right? But I think it was more important to quickly develop, get the king out of a center, out of his potential pin, right, of a bishop. So that's why a4 I think is just slow. Knight f6, yeah. Knight c3, bishop b4, okay. So we reached this position. This is even an improved version for black, I guess, because now because I played a4, b4 is so weak. So this is an improved version, but it's only because white played a4. White could have played instead of a4, white could have played, like I said, knight c3 or knight f3, then white would have been more fine. But because he played a4, this is still very good for black. Okay, bishop g5, pinning the knight. This this should not be good for white. Let's see, black played bishop takes c3. Okay. Pawn takes c3, castles. Another interesting move actually would have been queen a5. It's like triple attack, attacking the pawn on c3, attacking the bishop on g5, and also threatening knight takes c4. So the only way for white to defend would be bishop f6, gf, and I think black has a very good position. Yes, black has double pawns, but that's okay. On the other hand, black gets the g file, pressure on the g2 pawn. Black has a very active queen. White c3 pawn is very weak. This e5 square is also pretty good, so black would play maybe potentially queen e5 or put the knight especially on e5, right? Very good central square. So I think black has a very good position here actually, and it is no big deal that they have this pawn on f6. White can't really attack it, you know, to profit from it, to exploit it. So that's actually okay. You should not automatically worry about some double pawns. That's okay. If white cannot attack it, it's okay. So I think queen a5 would be pretty good here actually. Another move would be h6. Why? Well, because if white keeps the pin and plays bishop g4, black could play g5. And after bishop g5, knight takes c4, and so they win the central pawn. And probably next also gonna win the c3 pawn. We can also play like this. And so this is very good. And so then we force black to play bishop f6, and then we can even take the queen. So this time, whereas white still keeps his weak pawns, you know, on c2, c3, we don't even have these double pawns. So we keep our advantages without our disadvantages. So this might be maybe even better than queen a5. Maybe even better than queen a5, right? So I think h6 is very good. Usually, in these kind of positions, when there is a pin, the rule of thumb is don't just like let the pin be. Challenge the bishop. The rule of thumb is you should usually attack the bishop and challenge it. Play h6. If bishop h4, you can play g5. If they take, well, then you escape the pin. Oops. It's queen f6. But don't just let the bishop like that and not attack it. It's best usually to play h6. To always include h6. And of course, bishop c3 is not the only move. The knight is pinned anyway. So there's no rush. There's also just queen a5. Right? Not taking the knight yet. There's also h6 now. There's also simply castling, and maybe then even like d5 stuff, right? So bishop c3, there's this idea that the threat is stronger than the execution. We can always play bishop c3, so maybe it wasn't even necessary to take it immediately. Maybe it was more better actually to keep the threat, to keep more tension, you know? So yeah, but okay, black decides to do this and castle. That's okay. Knight f3, okay. h6, well, now we play it. Okay. Bishop h4. E5. Because the threat was e5, but I mean, g5 also could be, but it's a bit risky though, I agree. I mean, why could, but maybe it's okay. Bishop g3, knight takes e4. I guess we are afraid that g5 opens up the king a bit, right? So there's potentially ideas like h4, for example, right? So white is down a pawn, but maybe some compensation. Maybe we want to open up some files and right, could be like some compensation, maybe. Maybe that is what they were afraid of, or maybe like knight takes g5, right? hg, bishop g5, and then we have just like queen f3 and increasing the pressure on the knight, you know. And if so for example, and if king g7, then white could potentially play h4, rook h3, and then rook g3, lift the rook, and then again threaten bishop f6, and so black's king is weak. So that is legitimate. That is legitimate. So maybe black was afraid of that, right? Of knight takes g5. It could be. So black decided to play e5. Now e5 is double-edged. On one hand, it makes sense. Why? For a couple of reasons. One, it stops e5 because e5 is a threat, and two, it fixes the structure. So black has 2 knights and white has 2 bishops. Knights are better in closed or in fixed positions. When you have a knights, you don't want really an open position. You want a more closed or fixed. By playing e5, white fixes white like white fixes the skeleton, right? The pawn structure skeleton. It just becomes fixed. And then the knights are better in fixed positions. So this I can understand. The downside though is that it opens up a c4 bishop, right? Like in this case, the bishop is absolutely useless. And after e5, suddenly it becomes very, very, very good. It becomes very good. It attacks f7 suddenly. And another downside is it weakens d5. So eventually I can put a bishop or a knight on d5. And the other downside is it weakens f5. So then eventually white could play like knight h4 maybe eventually and put the knight on f5. And f5 is a very good square for the knight. So these are the downsides. Yeah. But okay, let's see. Castles, d6, okay. h3. Now h3 of course is too slow, I think. It just looks too slow, I don't know. Now what is white's best idea, I think? Because white has this spin, we wanna increase the pressure on the pin naturally. You should think, oh, how can I increase the pressure on the pin? Well, naturally you think about the rook. So then the best plan, I think, for white becomes to somehow play f4 and then open up this rook. So then we need to move a knight somewhere, let's say d2 or something, and then play f4. Let's say like knight d2, just to show the point. Let's make a random move. Maybe white can't even play f4 immediately, but just to show my point, right? Maybe like black can play g5, but my point is somehow we need to like open up the f file and have pressure on the knight. Something like this, right? Yeah. So this would be already how we do it. We should see, but this would be the ideal goal. Somehow to make it work, to open up the f file by playing f4, increasing thus the pressure on the knight. Okay. And so h3, I could see h3 work, but it's just a bit slow. The idea could be to play knight h2 and then f4, right? And then also the knight on h2, maybe it could potentially could go to g4, increasing the pressure. But it's just that black could take bishop takes g4, right? Then we could go maybe hj and g5. So it could make sense. It's just a bit slow, maybe. Just a bit slow. So maybe white could move the knight maybe quicker, right? So like d2 or e1, and then like play f4 quicker, you know. Another idea could also be, of course, to put pressure on d6, because that's also a weak pawn, something like queen d3 and rook d1, you know, increasing the pressure. Maybe then even play rook d2, rook d1, tripling on the d file. I think black can defend it. Black can play like queen e7, rook d8, and guard it. So I think you want to go for the more dangerous plan. So to me, more dangerous is to attack my king side, you know, to play f4. So, yeah. Okay. Queen e7. So white actually did play this. White did play this. Okay. Well, that makes sense. It's just a bit slow, but at least it makes conceptual sense. Bishop to e6. What? Now this is a big mistake, I think, by white. White should have never taken, because if white takes, oh, queen e6, that's a mistake. Black would have played fe, and now suddenly they control all these key squares. The rook is open. Now black is absolutely fine. The queen now can easily move, not worry about bishop f6 because the rook is open. The light squares are guarded, and black is completely fine, and black would even get the initiative soon. Black would play, for example, queen f7, then queen g6, then put the rook on f7, the a rook on f8, the knight on h5, and then the knight on f4. And now imagine, two rooks on the f file, knight on f4, queen on g6, attacking h3, attacking g2. Already black will have an initiative potentially. Maybe not immediately queen f7 because of queen d6. But I mean in time, maybe first rook d8 or something. Anyway, you get the point. White should have never taken. In these kind of positions, when black has this kind of structure, you should never take. Because black has weak light squares. But if you take, we play f8 and we guard the light squares. You should never take. What else could white played? I don't know. Bishop b3. Bishop b3 is like the easiest actually. And then if we take, we unpin our pawns, right? If takes, we just take. But then black still has weak light squares. And actually, now knight h2 makes even so much more sense. Actually, black should never take our bishop. Why? Because now we have knight g4 and they don't have a bishop on e6 to take our knight. So now this is a huge threat. So if we make some random move, let's say rook c8, knight g4 and it's over. Threatening, taking and gf, damaging completely black's king's pawn structure. Okay, so we can never actually even take our bishop. We can also play bishop d5. Because if we take let's say knight d8, well again knight g4, it's game over. Bishop d5 may be even more active. But we never take, we keep the tension. We keep the tension. So that was a huge strategical mistake, huge. Black took the queen. Is still okay because at least they, like previously we had a bishop, do you see? So they could never really escape this pin because they can't play queen e6. If we move a queen somewhere else, we just take the knight and we have to play gf, right? So but now we just escape a queen. So even queen e6 is okay for black, but fe maybe would have been even stronger. But even this is okay because they escape a pin. f4. Okay. Wait, knight e4. Now, this would be interesting because this, and then g5, this is interesting. Why? Because white has this interesting positional sacrifice idea. White could play rook takes f6, we sacrifice the exchange, queen takes f6, but then knight to g4, attacking the queen, attacking the pawn. Let's say queen somewhere g7, and then maybe bishop somewhere, let's say, I'm not sure, here or here. Somewhere, let's say, I don't know, let's say here or something, and then maybe with some compensation. We're down an exchange, but black has this weak king, open king, this weird queen, and just weak dark squares, and also weak light squares. We can also, for example, if we play like h5 or something, or even without h5, let's say some random move, yeah? We play rook c8 or something, knight e3, there's this idea, well, like knight f5, very good square for the knight, attacking the queen, attacking h6. There's ideas like h4, putting further pressure on g5. There's ideas like queen h5, right? After knight f5, putting further pressure on h6. If this knight ever moves from c6, the f2 bishop will come to d4, protecting the c3 bishop, but also putting pressure on this long diagonal. There's also ideas like rook b1, putting pressure on b7. So there's all sorts of ideas. So there's definitely some practical compensation for white, I believe, especially like in a real practical game. So I think this would have been pretty interesting in a real game for white. So I think would have been fine. But black decided to play knight takes e4. Okay. Fe. Now another idea would be f5 actually. What about f5? f5 looks very interesting. Attacking the queen. Let's say queen d7. This actually I think this would be much better than what white played, I believe. Because now it has ideas like f6. And so if black takes, I mean, they just damage their structure. We can maybe even play rook f6, gf, bishop f6. And this is a very dangerous bishop now. Very dangerous bishop. Or at the very least, of course, we can play like this. And now we don't even need to play rook f6. There's no need to play. A much better move would be something like knight g4, actually. Threatening to take the knight f6, and this is just huge attack for white, huge advantage for white. So there's that. I mean, if they play g6, I guess they could play g6, but this pawn is very dangerous. So black king is in big danger, you know. And there's ideas like knight g4, and if king h7, there's the queen c1. This is super dangerous for black, and threatening queen h6. And if we play g5, that is also weakening. I mean, we could at the very least, just move like the bishop back and then play like h4 ideas, you know. The king is so open. There's also ideas like queen e1, you know. And if we take, we just take the knight, and we go here, and we just, I don't know, we just take, we can just like take the pawn, for example, right? Knight h6 and queen h4. You're just completely winning. So that is, and if g5, at the very least we can always just move a bishop back, right? And then like there's queen h5 ideas attacking h6, then knight g4, or maybe we can even play queen h5 immediately. And if they take, we go like either, I don't know, knight g4 we can go, should be very good, of course. It's very good, or just queen h6, and after knight f6, rook f6, and then check, oops, and then just check, and king h7, rook h6, checkmate. You get my point. f6 is just absolutely crashing. Yeah, just f6. Yeah. So I believe f5 is the best move, and probably in a real game white would have easily won the game. So fe, I believe, is a mistake. Here, rook e1, here, okay. I mean, black can take with check, so that's probably a mistake. A much better version would be to play not knight f3, but knight g4. Because when knight g4 doesn't work, because the rook takes e6. So knight f3 probably a mistake. Rook d8, well, that's a huge mistake. I mean, black would have just taken with check here, and now, I don't know. There's multiple, there's like queen g6 check at the very least, right? It's check. There's even queen h3, right? And if queen d5, there's queen h4. Again, fine for black. So, should have just taken, yeah, rook d8, huge mistake. Wait, what? What about just bishop takes d8? Just bishop d8. Just take the rook, take the exchange. Just win the game, yeah, just bishop d8. Queen of 2 mistake, of course. Takes, now we take. Wrong timing. Queen g6. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but what else? Yeah, why? Black just, I mean, threw the game. With the last couple moves, they just threw the game. Queen c2, hanging the rook again. Yeah, why just completely winning now? Let's see. Yeah, this. They also maybe could do. Oh no, actually no. Yeah, rook. Actually, this is fine. Just rook f1, completely winning. Yeah, okay, interesting game. I hope you enjoyed. If so, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.